I feel fortunate to have started as a little seedling during 1980s horror, but it was something special to grow into my own fandom of horror in the 1990s. I've been sitting on this one for quite some time. I know What You Did Last Summer might not have been the pinnacle of 90s horror, but it sure as hell left an impression. The movie often gets overshadowed and overlooked, yet it deserves a higher spot among 90s teen slashers. Whether it's a nostalgic rewatch or a first-time viewing, I Know What You Did Last Summer remains a must-see for its perfect mix of 90s charm, genuine scares, and timeless appeal. Based very loosely on Lois Duncan's novel of the same name, I Know What You Did Last Summer was brought to life in 1997 by director Jim Gillespie and writer Kevin Williamson, fresh off his success with Scream.
I'll be right back!
Duncan wasn't a fan of the adaptation, feeling it strayed too far into slasher territory, a genre she didn't write. In her own words, "What I personally have a problem with are the stories, where violence is sensationalized and made to seem thrilling rather than terrible. I was appalled when my book, I Know What You Did Last Summer, was made into a slasher film. As the mother of a murdered child, I didn't find violent death something to squeal and giggle about." Duncan's perspective is deeply understandable and poignant, given her personal tragedy. Her original novel was more about psychological suspense than outright horror, making the film shift to a slasher format a significant departure. Despite this, the film managed to capture the 90s in all of its glory, partly thanks to its all-star teen bop cast featuring Jennifer Love Hewitt, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Ryan Phillippe, and Freddie Prinze Jr. Williamson made significant changes to the story, including changing the main killer to a fisherman. This was inspired by his own father, who was a commercial fisherman, not a serial killer, thankfully. Williamson spun his personal connection with the classic urban legend The Hook, which tells the story of a young couple terrorized by a hook-handed killer while parked at a secluded spot, creating a unique and memorable antagonist for the film. Of course, this wasn't the first killer with a fishing theme. There's the Mutilator and Bloodhook. And let's not forget Candyman, who rocked the hook-handed weapon in 1993. Not fishing related. This legend, combined with the influence of 80s slashers like Prom Night and The House on Sorority Row, helped fully shape the film. There were two final girls of the 1990s that I absolutely tried to emulate, Sidney Prescott and Julie James. I've got the Halloween photo from 1998 to prove it. The production had its share of highlights, filmed primarily in North Carolina because apparently it was the go-to place for teen dramas in the 90s. The coastal setting added an eerie, isolated atmosphere that just screamed tension. The film's premise: 4 friends covering up a hit and run only to be terrorized a year later by a hook-wielding killer. Time to take the ride back to last summer, or nearly 27 summers ago. It's not often that a movie opens with typo negative, but this one does, and it's ripped a page out of the Lost Boys playbook. I'd like to also add that the decision to cover Summer Breeze by Sills and Crofts was spectacular. More on that later. Is this the highest we'll ever get in the movie? More details to come. We see a rather melancholy man sitting on a cliff spinning a pendant inscribed with "I love you." He takes a swig from his bottle of alcohol. We didn't necessarily need the scene, but there it is. It's like a Christopher Pike novel come to life. Cut to the Croker beauty pageant, and we now meet our 4 main characters. Julie James, the sweet and sensible one, played by Hewitt. Helen Shivers, our pageant queen and aspiring actress, played by Gellar. Barry Cox, the angry, troubled jock, played by Phillippe. And Ray Bronson, the good-looking down-home boy, played by Prinze Jr. After Helen wins her title, their night to remember begins. Helen brushes off an early ride home from her older, more responsible sister Elsa, played by Bridget Wilson, who goes just as hard delivering the sass. Julie, left to her own devices, gets a "before you go off to college" lunch invite from Max, played by Johnny Galecki. At this point, we can only assume he's been massively friend-zoned. Drunk Barry then gallivants in, picks a fight with the harmless Max, and claims he was just protecting his bro's girlfriend. I wonder what the Barrys of the world are up to now. I mean, I'm sure most of you had one in high school. All 4 friends head down to the beach and, in a bit of classic horror foreshadowing, share the Hook legend around a campfire. Julie steps out of her comfort zone here.
No, he wasn't decapitated. He was gutted with a hook.
At least that's what I heard. And delivers this mischievous smile, and then looks to Ray, who is slightly uncomfortable, which I love. Another part that still haunts me this day is when Julie finally decides to get with Ray on the beach. Where is the towel? Did anyone see a towel? You've all laid down in the sand at some point, I assume. Just let your imagination roam here. Phillippe and Gellar's chemistry here feels natural, so it's no surprise they ended up starring together in 1998's Cruel Intentions. That's why I was so shocked to learn that Gellar was actually dating Prinze Jr. in real life a little bit after that. Now they're married. Following their beachside campfire stories and cozying up, Ray takes the wheel of Barry's car, tasked with getting their drunk friend and the rest of the group back home. Barry complains about Ray's wiener music, then cranks up Wake Up Call by Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, and takes a trip through the sunroof to let all that pin-up teenage male aggression out. Barry drops his bottle of vodka into the car, and before you know it, bam, he gets fabioed by a fisherman. No, not the romance cover, like when he got hit by that bird in the face while riding that roller coaster. Max happens to pass by while all this is going on. Julie bats her eyes and says Barry's just hurling because of teen hijinks. Max takes off, they dump the body of the fisherman, but not before he snatches Helen's crown right off of her head. They all swear to keep the events of the night to themselves. When Barry threatens Julie by gripping her throat, Hewitt's acting shows she's more than just the teen dream. I also love the added eye roll she gives Ray after he asks her if she's okay. Way to read the room, Ray. Fast forward a year later, Julie's miserable. We see her at college and she looks like she hasn't slept since that night. Her friend drags her ass back home to visit her friends and her family. She reunites with Helen after receiving a note at her house that says, "I know what you did last summer. I do too, and I'm surprised you've gotten away with it this long." When Helen and Julie go to visit with Barry, he delivers one of my favorite lines so satisfyingly. "I know what you did last summer. Ooh, what a crock of shit." I have to say, for a teen flick or any flick I've ever seen him in, Phillippe is always fully committed. Barry immediately remembers the run-in with Max that night and assumes that he wrote it. We all know he didn't. Even Julie and Helen are skeptical, but that doesn't stop Barry from scaring the shit out of him. His words.
"I scared the shit out of him, all right?"
What sucks here is that Max is the first target of the fisherman. Not even just that, but why Max? He had no clue. He was basically just used as a warning to the others. Then he does a little eye for eye with Barry's car, then keeps him alive. After the accident, they decide to follow Julie's lead about a man named David Egan. She does her own murder she wrote and finds that David had a sister named Missy, who was played by the late Anne Heche. I know it was a small role for her and maybe not one of Oscar caliber quality, but in the moments that she is on screen, her vulnerability adds depth to the film. Heche's ability to convey a sense of underlying fragility while keeping you hooked is a testament to her acting skills, making her scenes memorable. Missy also notes that she received a visit from a friend named Billy Blue. We all know that's not his real name. After Helen's traumatic haircutting incident, the tension only escalates. Yes, we've made it. A 12-year-old created the most iconic scene in the movie. No, not Max covered in crabs, though that did surprise me at the time. In 2018, JLH revealed that there was a contest to direct and create a moment for the movie. A 12-year-old boy won it. His direction for Hewitt was to get in the middle of the street, start spinning, he'd shoot it from above, and then she was to shout, "What are you waiting for?" She wasn't a believer at the time, but certainly is now. I mean, the kid clearly has taste. Meanwhile, Julie decides to dig deeper into their mysterious stalker. Armed with the yearbook, she heads back to Missy's place, hoping to get more answers. Julie learns that David supposedly committed suicide out of the guilt for the death of his girlfriend, Susie Willis, in a car accident. Missy shows her David's suicide note, but Julie quickly realizes the writing matches a threatening note that she received. It wasn't a suicide note. It was a death threat. Oh, and guess what? Julie stumbles upon an article about Susie's father, Ben Willis, and the light bulb finally goes off. Ben was the guy they ran over, right after he killed David to avenge his daughter. I just can't believe anything anymore. So, if you haven't been a part of the fan club, I will tell you that this scene is the one that I always bring up when I find a non-believer. Helen has witnessed the murder of Barry from the balcony and is reeling because no one believed her. In fact, this is one of the parts that pisses me off the most because why are they holding her back when she starts screaming and running to Barry? Now that's out of the way, a cop winds up taking Helen home and she just starts laying into him. The chase sequence that follows is one of the most memorable in all of horror. It kicks off with her trapped in the back of a cop car, setting the stage for high tension as the killer appears. Helen's desperation is clear as she escapes and races to the department store, and it feels like we're right there with her. One part that really puts me on the edge of my seat is when Elsa takes forever to open the door. Open the fucking door, Elsa! You can also feel Helen's frustration and panic as the seconds tick away. The whole scene is brilliantly paced, keeping you glued to the screen. Her determination shines through, especially when she's nearly made it to safety in the alleyway, right by the parade. It's so bittersweet. Just when you think she's made it, the scene takes a gut-wrenching turn, making it that much harder to witness no matter how many times you've seen it. That shit would not be happening on Buffy's watch.
So, are you gonna kill me, or are we just making small talk?
This scene is a masterclass in suspense and showcases Geller's ability to do what she does best, making it one of the standout moments of the film, or the standout moment.
Before we continue with our video, here's a reminder to click the store tab on any of our JoBlo channels and browse our collection of the latest and freshest designs in our merch store. Go get you some.
Now the showdown is on. When Julie goes to Ray to tell him about the latest twist in the Willis-Egan saga, she sees Billy Blue emblazoned on the side of his boat. Naturally, she wigs out and runs off, thinking Ray's in on it. Ray chases after her, trying to clear up the huge misunderstanding. Suddenly, a strange man knocks Ray out and tells Julie to get on the boat. Seriously, who would get on a boat with a creepy stranger? Also, the line,
"You in some kind of trouble, child?"
along with the delivery, just hits me the wrong way every time. But Julie gets on the boat anyway and discovers the Psycho collage with super up-to-date photos. Ben must have his own darkroom. We finally meet the man in the slicker, Ben, played by Muse Watson. Watson, a friend of horror, also had standout roles on Prison Break and NCIS. Ray, regaining consciousness, comes to Julie's rescue. Though, let's be honest, this three-way struggle often feels a bit off. Freddie Prinze Jr., please forgive me, but the dopey boy next door thing worked for me back then, just doesn't land the same impact with me now. The acting was a thing. I love everything else though, especially Rebels, so just please keep that in mind. Side note, apparently director Gillespie treated Prince like he didn't deserve to be there and gave him crappy notes. This is coming from Prince. All because Jeremy Sisto wasn't cast. Prince later said that this experience prepared him to deal with the business and the potential assholes that might come along. Fortunately, every other director he's worked with has been less of an asshole. As the chaos unfolds, Ben's hook gets caught and he's hoisted up and tossed into the ocean once more. It's an ending we know he'll come back from, but we'll play like we don't know what happens next summer. Julie is now safe back at college and is her perky normal self until she sees "I Still Know" written on the shower door. Next stop, the Bahamas. It's the 90s and I am compelled to talk soundtracks. This one is no exception. Did we all not leave the theater with Hush by Kula Shaker in our heads? Did anyone even know Kula Shaker? Do you now? Another cover, much like our Typo track. Circling back to our earlier convo, Typo wrote their own lyrics for Summer Breeze because Peter Steele thought you could just do that without permission from the original songwriters. Well, he did ask, but they weren't too impressed and gave it a big rejection. You can find it as Summer Girl. Very Typo, very horror. There's some Offspring here because they were on every soundtrack. Our Lady Peace with Clumsy, classic track. We've also got L7, Toad the Wet Sprocket, Soul Asylum, and Korn. Ah yes, Korn. This is in between Life is Peachy and Fall the Leader, both stellar in my humble opinion. The track called Proud didn't make it to the movie, or at least the final cut, but sometimes not all of them do. Oh, Lead Belly's Where Did You Sleep Last Night does play when Julie visits Missy for the second time, but it didn't land a spot on the soundtrack itself. As far as covers go, as many of you know, Nirvana infamously covered this song on their 1993 Unplugged set, which actually released in 1994. I Know What You Did Last Summer definitely earns its place among the slashers. With a budget of $17 million, the movie almost recouped its costs in the opening weekend, grossing $15.8 million. By the end of its theatrical run, it had raked in $125.6 million worldwide. It was massive. A remake from Sony was supposed to come about in 2014 from Mike Flanagan and Jeff Howard. They were ramping this thing up for 2016, and boy was it big. They didn't want to do a remake, and they weren't looking at the novel. Howard said he didn't even know about the book until after the fact. This all felt like a very go big or go home thing, and unfortunately, they went home. Hey, Mike, Jeff, can you send me the script for this thing? They also did a TV series with Neil Moritz and James Wan producing that landed on Prime. Pass. If you were still waiting on a remake reboot, then look no further to the one coming in 2025 from Jennifer Caden Robinson, Sweet Vicious, Thor Love and Thunder, and Do Revenge, and Leah McKendrick, MFA, Scrambled. Hewitt and Prince will be back in their respective roles, though the movie will focus on a younger cast with a social media twist. In the end, my feelings towards I Know What You Did Last Summer are deeply rooted in nostalgia. This movie made me want to be a final girl all over again, just like Nancy from A Nightmare on Elm Street first made me feel. It takes me back to the fall of 1997, a great year for movies, when we not only got I Know What You Did Last Summer, but we also got Scream 2. It's a reminder of why I fell in love with horror in the first place. Even after not seeing the movie for like 5 years, I still knew a good chunk of the dialogue. And it's not just me. Audiences connected with it too. Over the years, I've seen countless fans reference and celebrate this film. It has carved out a place in pop culture and truly deserves to shine brighter in the horror universe.
What are you waiting